Hello friends, neighbors, Johnny Whiskey here. Welcome down the Nook. Happy Sunday. It is Sample Sunday, so I'm going to be looking at some single grain whiskeys. These are shared with me super generously by Dark Cloud Whiskey. Thank you so much, sir. But what's interesting about today's three that I've poured out here is that, we start with an 8-year-old single grain, then we go to a 26-year-old single grain, and we're going to anchor with a 36-year-old single grain. Their ABVs change, and obviously their ages change, but on the bottles, it's all written here that they're all matured. This one says matured American oak, and this one says ex-bourbon. This is just going to be as it always is. I've poured them out, I've let them breathe for a bit, but I haven't had them in any way. Fun thing about samples with you guys, I think, is that we're just sharing thoughts together. If you've got any single grain whiskey, why don't you pour a dram? Come on back and see if you hit any of the same flavors I do. 3, 4. Well, thanks for coming back. As I said in the opener, this first one is from Kilbeggan. So it's an Irish whiskey, and it says that it's 8 years old and it's 43% aged in American oak. I don't really know. I did some quick, searching online. Like, can I find a Kilbeggan? And I could find a Kilbeggan 8-year-old single grain that was 96 corn or 94 corn and 6% malted barley. But I'm not sure if that's this single grain or not. This is Kilbeggan, it is 8 years, but this one says 43 and everyone that I found online was 40%. Either way, let's see what I get nose and taste on this single grain whiskey. Oh, what I should say is recently, just shot a kind of a walkthrough of these three where it was single grain. Well, it wasn't single grain. It was grain whiskeys, blended scotch, and then malted scotch, all a blend, but just single malts. And an astute viewer did definitely say, hey, John, Loch Lomond has a single grain whiskey made only from barley. It has to do with how it's made as well. I know that makes it a little bit more confusing. So just in general, single grains usually are column distilled and have lots of other grains. They might have some opening up barley, but they usually have a lot of corn. Sometimes they have a lot of wheat. I don't know if I made that any better, but I did want to acknowledge that it is possible, because barley is a grain, to have a single grain whiskey that's made up of barley. But usually when we talk scotch, for sure, when we talk single malt scotch, it's all barley for sure. And it's more about keeping that distinction than what's going on in grain. Let's try this one, nose and palate. So what I get in grains with this kind are a little bit more buttered notes, a little more toffee notes, a little sugared sweetness. I don't get a lot of fruit on here. And a little bit of oak in the background, a little bit of that spicing is fairly vanilla forward. So yeah, vanilla, icing, frosting, that kind of thing comes up pretty quick here on this younger grain. Let's try it on the palate. Sláinte. Well done. It's clean. It's bright. There are a little bit of fruit notes, but just some general fruit cup notes. It stays fresh, clean, lots of vanilla, sweetness from that, like I said, that frosting. A little bit of oak, not a lot of spice. Very, I would say, rather easy drinking. It's also, for me, not a lot of character. It can be slightly mechanical. And when I say can be, that's this class of whiskey for me. And here, I've just had one sip, but I was getting just at the end a little bit of, I would say, industrial water note. Not a bad whiskey, but doesn't draw me in as much as some other styles of whiskey. The next one is an independent bottler, Clondalkin, and they've picked an older. I know, Sean, you said this was the middle age, but this is a 26-year-old whiskey from Invergordon. Invergordon, I think, is White Mackay, and I've had an independent bottling of an 11-year of their grain. And at the time, a research was telling me that they tend to use actually a lot of wheat. So I don't know what the grains are in this. Could be a lot of wheat, but there could also be a lot of corn. That's the most common because it does work very well through column stills and give good alcohol production. Anyways, this one is 26 years old, also in American oak. So we have gone up significantly in age. See what it does. Nose and palate. There's more caramel toffee richness to this. Yeah, coming back, I would say I'm getting a little more pear sweetness in this. Here I've got starting with a lot of richer caramels, cooked caramels. A little more floral note to the vanillas on this one. It's just is that way on the nose. Let's try it on the palate. Sláinte. No, I should have said. Oh boy, we've gone up in ABV. This is 50.6 versus 43, but this is so much richer. It's now, as I said, those thicker caramels, some cooked sugars, not burnt, we're not there, but oh, and the spicing that I'm getting now is just a light cinnamon, little bit of peppering, but not that might put you off. But that's probably, that's probably the alcohol heat that's really giving that effect of being spicy, because it's still also creamy, coating. But there is a whole additional layer of buttery caramel flavors that are coming around in this one versus the 8 years. So going up to 26 years, I still have to say that's an older whiskey, but apparently, Sean, in your whiskey shelf, that's just middling years. But this is just so rich and so tasty. I'm really liking it. So let's come to the final one. This sample is put out by the independent bottler, the Northern Star Group and Northern Star Spirits. And it is a blended grain Scotch. So it's all sourced and aged in Scotland. Bourbon cask matured, but it's 36 years old. And we've gone from, we started at 43, then 50 and a half. This is 52.5%. I really don't know what's in it though. Again, if this could be multiple grains, and it doesn't even say single grain. At least this came from a single distillery. So even if it's made up of multiple grains, it can be considered a single grain whiskey. Whereas this, I don't know. And I really don't know if that's going to come over on the camera, but the color is significantly different. Like these remind me of ex-bourbon casks, and the coloring here, I know it's in it for 36, so it can pull that kind of color out of casks, but it looks like it's pulled a little color from a little ex-sherry or something. I don't know if that's true, but the color gives me that impression. Let's try it on the nose. This is Northern Star Spirits, 36-year-old grain Scotch, blended grain Scotch. Here, I would say we're absolutely on a continuum. I've got now, what's that dessert? Creme brulee. This is like creme brulee. It's that smoked, not smoked, but like that cooked, sweet, sugared, creamy. Yeah, that's in my head. Beautiful. It is just that light caramel, cream, sugar. But I would also say there's a little, not graham cracker, but there's something, a little bit of a pastry smell to it. I also get a little bit of fruit, almost like cherry is way too strong a fruit for that, but a little bit of something like that. Wow, but it's very rich. Let's try it on the palate. Sláinte. I'm getting a little bit of chocolates, a little bit of graham cracker, a little bit of s'mores going on. I don't know why. I mean, the s'mores is such a cheap, fun family treat. I should have stuck with creme brulee, but I'm getting a little bit of toasted marshmallow, a little bit of chocolate, and something like that graham cracker is just going on. I would make it fancier. It's 36 years old, so it's a pastry wrapped creme brulee. I'm just trying to make it up. What I'm trying to get at for flavors, though, is it is richer for my palate. Now, If I had another round of these samples, it would be fun to pour them truly blind in glasses I can't see and then just talk through the whiskey. There is more heat on this one. That 52.5 kicks it up. And I'm now getting an actual black pepper spice, not just alcohol. That could be my palate being tricked by alcohol, but I'm getting a little bit of spicing now in the longer finish. This one really coats though, like when you feel like you got to lick your lips. It still goes back to that sticky dessert kind of thing I'm going on. This is a very, very rich blended Scotch. I can enjoy all of these, but if this is representative of how age really treats grain whiskeys, and I've had a few older grain whiskeys in the past, and I tend to say, this is kind of an accurate change in flavor profile that I've seen in grain whiskeys, which is that maturity into rounder caramel and cooked sugars and breadth of flavors, still giving it, like, this one has a beautiful mouthfeel, just a really good presence. The more I talk, that peppering is still there. There's a slight bitterness on the back, which is very interesting for a 36-year-old. You'd think it would just be none of that stuff, but there's a little bit of bitterness in here. But overall, my favorite whiskey for sure of this sample. I think I talked a lot, more than I should have, but I hope that you are inspired to not just say no to a grain or a single grain whiskey. Maybe if you don't like the younger ones that you've tried, see if a bottle with some age on it is around. Give it a try. If this walkthrough is what you might experience, I think you'll appreciate a little more age on some grain. You guys, thanks for joining me. Have a great Sunday.